Don't worry, be happy. No, I better say more than that. Anyway, it's been very, very lovely to be with you in this Zooming kind of atmosphere. It's been good for our community. We're about 11 people resident in the monastery just now, 4 monks and the rest are lay friends. And so we've been coming in every afternoon and evening to join in the retreat. So it's been really nice to get that retreat vibe in the monastery too. So we do this once a month, but we usually don't have a Zoom retreat going. So this was kind of extra special, and everyone is very grateful for that. The way I've been teaching and talking is just very personal. I'm a practical kind of guy. So right understanding for me is, if it works, it's right in that sense. So rather than doctrinal sense, that doesn't mean that they have to be conflicting with each other. But my sense of right understanding as I began the retreat was, when you understand how to get from A to B, it might take a while, but you kind of know the path, you know the map. Or if you understand how to create something or make something, it might take a while, but you understand what the process is or what the project is. So right understanding, I prefer to right view, just in terms of language. And so I'm just talking from our own sense of what works for me and trying to share it with you. And then if it doesn't work, then it's not your truth, but it's not necessarily wrong. So that my first teacher he would say to me, the truth for you is the truth that edifies. It educates you in this sense, in a dharmic sense. And then one of the themes I brought up in one of the talks was that there are 3 possibilities, or three ways you might think of peace and well-being. One is the social, one is the emotional, and one is the transcendent. And so the social requires skill, the skill of craft, the skill of communication, the skill of using limited resources, the skill of interpersonal relationships. So many skills are required for that. Political skills and skills of law. So that in place creates a society and a community and a family which are socially cohesive and socially balanced enough that one isn't afraid all the time, or isn't dying of hunger or a disease or whatever. The emotional happiness we can have is, I was suggesting, moving to the territories of non-desire, to the territories of non-ego, to the places of compassion, generosity, forgiveness, joy, beauty, moving to those emotional spaces that we can touch, and then learning how to not engage those emotional spaces which are fraught with anxiety and resentment. And there's a lot of work there. There's a lot of work there. And that certainly produces a beautiful human being who then is much more competent socially. But the purpose of, I think, the Buddha's enlightenment wasn't just an emotional well-being, but it is a foundation for transcendent understanding. And as I've often said in these retreats, that insight, that when His Holiness the Dalai Lama said that the compassion is the method, I said, oh yeah, it's not the goal, that it's the method. Get your heart open and then go more deeply. And that's always stayed with me. As you know, I often say that. So the transcendent is my curiosity. Well, I'm curious about my emotional life and social life as well, but that's why I took up Buddhist path. It fit my sense of what spiritual life was possible, and it's constantly prevented me, I think, from settling for less. settling for some situation that is comfortable or some emotional state which is happy. So it's still conditioned, still contingent, it's still sankata. So this aspirate. Also, like in Buddhism, I've never been interested in powers or the occult or the paranormal. I've never been interested in rebirth, even, really. Never been interested in devas. You know, so I'm a pretty boring guy. I basically just, what is the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginated, the unformed? What is that about? And that, I think, comes from my own childhood, where there was some sensitivity in me that touched something which was not to be forgotten, but not really understood. And so my search has been in terms of that. And fortunately, my teachers also have had, and Luangpor Cha and others. And I've met other teachers or taught or read other teachers who have that same aspiration. And of course, those are the kind of teachers I would choose. And so I was teaching a lot of that. And then I was suggesting, well, the word trust was big in my vocabulary during this retreat. So I was suggesting just contemplate the word trust, what that might mean. And obviously it means different. Trust is different in a business sense, right? Trust is different in a human interaction sense. If someone has betrayed you, trust is maybe not possible, right? So that is, the word trust is used in its own contexts, the context of the business world, the context of your emotional life and interpersonal life. So if someone's cheated on, if you have a plumber or a contractor who cheated on you, you're not going to hire him again. That would be not trust, that would be stupid. But then the area of trust I was interested in more is what has the sense of trust have to do with nibbana, with the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unformed, the deathless, amaravati, amaro, amarasiri. We have these words. And what is trust within that framework? And what is trust in the framework of the Four Noble Truths? Non-desire, third noble truth, letting go. What does that, and what can you trust in? And then I was suggesting, well, what about taking up Luangpor Sumedho's suggestion, trust and awareness? So I was kind of hammering away at that theme. I don't know how effective it is, but hopefully that you see that what I'm trying to do, and I think all the forest monks are trying to do, is get people to reflect, not just believe. Belief isn't wrong. So like I said, I'm not terribly interested in rebirth. I kind of use it as a working hypothesis. Seems, reasonable kind of thing for me. If you said it's not true, I'd be fine. I have no paranormal abilities, so I don't, I haven't seen a past life, future life. I can barely remember yesterday, so that's not in my vision at all. But then I think I have an advantage in that way, is that I don't get distracted by those things, because although, all of that talk about powers and devas, it's still sankata. It's still sankharas. The deva is a sankhara. An asura is a sankhara. A ghost they're still compounded things. And the fascination with the compounded and the conditioned is to the detriment of the realization of nibbana, or the realization of the unconditioned, because the unconditioned is not sankata. It's not constructed. It's not fabricated. So that's one of the problems of modern culture, just the fascination with stuff, whether it's information, whether it's making furniture, whether it's BBC News, whether it's fake news or real news, whether it's fashion or sport. The mind loves to be fascinated because it's interesting. And what we're doing is we're not moving out into fascination. We're abiding with the way things are. So we have to endure a certain amount of negativity or boredom or doubt. And our capacity to witness those and trust and awareness gets us to the place where we don't have to go out. We stay home. And then you have the ideas of Luangpor Cha's Our Real Home, coming home. And so for me, I was joking, kind of jokingly say there's a Bodhisattva project, which is emotional and social, and there's the Arahant project, and that would be for me, like Luangpor Cha saying, coming home. We want to be home. We want safety. We want refuge, and we can do it to a certain extent in our social environments. We can do a certain extent having a really clear emotional life, but then the ultimate realization that the Buddha and Luangpor Cha and others are talking about is a very different kind of inquiry, because it's not the inquiry into objects, it's inquiry into the very knowing of objects. It's not an experience, it's the knowing of the changing nature of experience. And so I've tried to allude to that in many, many ways. I don't know if that's effective, but just take it as contemplation, as reflection. And then I would ask you to question your own, like, well, what is your goal in the spiritual life? Obviously, your goal in your social life is to be a good person and to serve your family and to make sure your kids are well and that your society is harmonious. And so I think we're all there to make a profit in business. If you're an architect, to create a beautiful structure. If you're a legal person, to win a case. So those are all good worldly things. And then emotionally, I think we all want to be happy, right? We want to be free from anger and fear. So that's fairly obvious. But what is the spiritual part? What would you say? In the West, like a lot of people are down on religion. And so religious forms have have done bad things, like the Catholic Church in Canada and the residential schools you might have read of. Horrible stuff is going on, right? So fair enough, people can mistrust religion, and folk like that, they have, that I meet, they have good hearts, and I say, so okay, you say you're not religious, but you say you're spiritual, and I ask, so what is that? What does that mean for you? And quite often they don't know how to answer, and they'll just say, oh, well, no, I don't know. Well, what do you actually mean by that? What do you mean by spiritual? And that's a nice vague word. And so I would suggest that the spiritual life is the realization of the Buddha's enlightenment. I don't think it's beyond any of us. I think to say that, you have to wait for another 30,000 lifetimes and make lots of merit by feeding me, I don't think that's true. Not at all. So I would caution against self-definitions, which are very limiting, because a self-definition that I'm just bumbling along and I'll never realize Nibbana is just a thought. That's all it is. It's a thought. It's just the same thought as, the thought I am enlightened or I'm not enlightened. It's the same thought. It's just a sense of I. But what is it that knows that? And I would suggest that knowing really is what spirituality is about. And we rarely look or observe the knowing or consciousness or awareness. We rarely turn to that because it's just so obvious. So we turn to the external. And most of the times we need to, because we need to live in the world in a sane and good way. So good question, isn't it? Like, so what is your goal in this work? Because it's hard work, isn't it? Meditation. So one of the goals is to be a more peaceful person, to be more composed and collected, which is great. I mean, that's one of the big reasons I meditate. But for me also, there's this sense of inquiry and curiosity. What did this man realize? What did Ajahn Chah realize? What did Luangpor Liam realize? Where's Luangpor Sumedho at? And where's Sri Ramana at? And where was Jean Klein at? And, different teachers that we have met. And that curiosity cannot be answered through a belief. You can believe that Luangpor Cha was enlightened, but so what? It doesn't help you. But you can be curious. Well, so what does he point to when he says Ploy Wang, let go? What's he talking about? Well, Sumedho keeps, like, think about Luangpor Sumedho now. He's been a monk for 50 years, right? Is it 50 years? Right? He's read it all. He's studied a lot, done every type of meditation you can imagine, and has been good at it. He's one of the things he never taught. He's 86 now. but he was a really diligent, he did really diligent hatha yoga. As I say to people, I saw him once do the splits with his legs and touch his stomach to the ground. I mean, if you've ever done yoga, just to do the splits is awesome. He used to put us in Hampstead Vihara. We used to do yoga sessions in the mornings. We'd do a headstand for 20 minutes. And he just kind of really, really pushed us. So he's got, all those skills. So here's a man who's very accomplished, has a good degree in East Asian studies, and his first disciple of Luangpor Chan. And what is the summation of his teaching towards the end of his life? It's like this. You think, is that it? Is that what you get for 50 years? And all that work? Well, if you think it's just like a tautology, it's like this. Well, how else could it be? Well, it's not. No. What he's pointing to is the enlightened mind, presence. It's like this. And then if you take that language, you brighten your mind with it. Oh, it's like this. And then there's silence. And then there's silence. And you begin to be interested in that silent knowing. I find that really interesting that Luangpor's, the end of his life, he says it's like this and it all belongs. You'd think it'd be a bit, you get a bit more. I mean, he will elaborate and so on and so forth. We always go back to that. You'll always go, it's like this, it's like this, like this. And so consider that. What is the profundity of that statement? Because it doesn't, it doesn't take much to understand it verbally, but what's the profundity of that as a practice? Well, for me, the profundity is to awaken the mind and then sustain. It's like this, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. And that's where the difficulty is, isn't it? Because it's like this becomes worry or goes in all kinds of places. So if you have a chance, do listen to Luangpor Sumedho's talks now. He's giving talks every week, a lot of talks, and he's giving the lion's roar, and he's got lots of energy. So I kind of honor him when I think of these retreats, honor Luangpor Sumedho, and of course the Buddha. We're very grateful, obviously, for that. So again, I thank you all for listening, and I think I could close there.